Okay, I think we're gonna start this stream. Do let me know if you can see me, if you can hear me. I can see that there's a few people on the actual live stream, so let me know if I'm coming through, that I'm not just, waffling around to myself. Do let me know who you are, where are you watching this from, how has your week been? Just say something in the chat. So I'm not kind of just waffling in desperation, trying to see if it's linking up, if the audio is fine, if a video is coming through. Let's see. Who's here. Do drop a note. One thing which I'm gonna start is actually what you're gonna see on my screen, which is basically, it's what I actually just randomly came by while prepping for this live stream, setting up all the different bits, because that does take quite a few moments actually. So I have to start like at least a couple of hours earlier just to see that everything is plugged in. But this blog post is something I just kind of like came through out of nowhere ultimately, and I reshared on my Twitter and everything else, but I think it's so apt for what we're dealing with right now in UX, because a lot of people, again, like here you see the actual thing is called 1,000 Little Steps, and ultimately it's a short story, short blog at that, but the message is that if you think about anything really around us, dentist offices, let's say, for the last 50 years, it just transformed, exponentially, like one bit by bit, things like which were at first quite resistive, and some of the things which caused a lot of turmoil, and dentists obviously didn't like them. Ultimately, 50 years in, we are not in the same place that we used to be, but the dentists themselves remain. The need for that job still remains. And the same way why I wanted to share with you this one, to start, it's really off topic, but I think it's a good one because it kind of inspires you a bit to think about, okay, is UX going to be needed if, let's say, we have AI or automation or things of that nature? And to me, UX is like dentistry in a way. It addresses a lot of specific, maybe not as specific, but a lot of the needs a lot of the population has. It's just that some of the people don't know that we have bad teeth, so to speak, in UX specifically. In dentistry, obviously, it's as more straightforward. You have pains, you can address them. Not every person knows how to address their actual UX needs, or their products or services are kind of dysfunctional. But anyways, I just wanted to start with that note, because a lot of you, I'm sure, thinking about, like, I can see on a chat already, there's feeling more like UX is dead. Well, I would disagree, because UX is never going to be dead. It's just the methods, the jobs could die, or like the tasks, or like jobs to be done could definitely change and, so to speak, die. But all of them transfers, just like in dentistry, let's say, the machines, the things which were used back in the day obviously are not the same. There is a lot of automation in terms of how you deal with a customer, and who are involved in that. But still, the dentistry persists. And I know it's a proxy example comparing dentistry with UX, but I think it's a good illustration of like what is needed, what isn't needed. It's just that people might change, tools might change, the methods might change, the automation might happen. But anyways, I know it's off topic, I'm going on a tangent, but I just wanted to start with that because I think it's apt. Hello, Juan, Dan, Adriana, again, thinking. I see you're calling in from a lot of different places. Great week with Olympics, providing lots of inspiration. That's awesome. To be entirely honest, I haven't seen anything from Olympics, so that's, glad that you at least enjoyed. But let's start, because we have a lot to go through, and I have quite interesting small announcement to make. I see Michelle as well here, Praskovia, Cosinus Beta here. Thank you for joining me. But today we are going to go through 3 resumes. And I have also one plug or one announcement to make from my side, which is quite exciting for me. I hope for you too. But before I do that, let's start with the first resume, because, you know, I don't want to take up too much time, basically. So the first resume is gonna be from Michelle, and Michelle is actually in a chat. So Michelle, feel free to, you know, to write some notes or challenge me or say or ask questions, and everyone else really as well. Feel free to chip in and, you know, just ultimately have a good time discussing things and hanging out. So Michelle really submitted this resume. Sorry, I need to plug another thing. After the previous live stream, some people were confused, like how can they submit things to review? Now, the time is limited, and you know, I understand everybody wants their things reviewed, but the best thing you can do if you are watching this, or maybe you're watching now on a stream, join the Design Squad community on Discord, because that's where I made a call out and said, hey, who wants to review? Because I just wanted to run a live stream for resumes. Who wants their resumes reviewed? And some people did. I received way too many submissions, whereas I had to ask people to hold on and said, let me get back to it at some point, you know, when I have more live streams. But that's just reality, right? Like, you're more likely to get your things reviewed if you join a community, and there's many more people to do so, to help you out. You know, just don't rely on myself either. Engage with our community members, contribute, and reciprocity, or law of reciprocity, should kick in, and other people, you know, could help you out. Anyhow, so Michelle is looking for a role in accessibility management or research management. I think both are sort of adjacent, so I think the advice or tips could actually be relevant for both. I manage processes, but want to move up and manage people. That's, I guess, slightly different twist to the story. My resume is a bit varied, though, and can be found here, which is on Notion. Also quite unique way to showcase work experience, skills, and so forth. So that's also interesting. I have more questions than I can actually add value, I think, right now, but let's actually unpack it and see what's there. I'm looking for more direction on how to pull it all together so it's enticing for someone hiring for people management. I am principal at the moment, so still an IC. So, okay, so I'm gonna actually take that Notion. Let me just take a different color really quickly. I'm going to focus mostly on the people management then, because I think accessibility management and research management is a subject matter, right? Like so you know what expertise is needed, or you should know because you're doing that. I think one of the things which is in your favor, Michelle, and this is more of a general advice, is that management is much more broad and much more abstracted than specific accessibility or research or things of that nature. If you're a principal level, now you can think that you could manage not just specific design chapter or accessibility team of sorts or research team. You could kind of abstract and manage broader structures or broader teams, if that makes sense, where there is a lot of skill sets involved in that. And as such, you can kind of like then think of like how much your resume should be specialized and how much of it should be broadened to highlight the things like strategy, actual people management, coaching, be it player coaching. As an IC, you kind of have to do that to then go to management. Connecting the dots across different teams, product portfolios. There is a lot of ways to skin it. Organizational, operational skills as well, because you know, as a people manager, you might think that they're just going to be managing people who are doing the work, but it's so much more, because you have to connect with other business areas, and you have to basically pave a lot of that ground, or that, you know, way the road, so that people can actually connect with different towns, so to speak, within the company. And that's going to be massive of your job. There's going to be a lot of unblocking, troubleshooting, enabling self-service from the people, and so forth. But anyways, I'm going on a broader tangent of what skill sets you might have, but immediately that should kind of, you know, spin the wheels, and you can kind of have a thought of like, what could I put in the resume from what I already done? And I see Michelle Udipta joined as well. I didn't want to send a PDF, LOL. Was easier for me to redact info in Notion. Haha. Okay, so the format actually is not locked in. I guess that's answered. I obviously took a screenshot, so I took the liberty to just present it flat. But Michelle, I guess, just copy pasted it into Notion, meaning that she probably has different versions. Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but I think you have probably a doc, a PDF, things of that nature. Okay, so Michelle added a photo as well, which I guess, you know, from my advice and my takes and videos before, this is that gray area where it depends who you apply for in what area of the world and things of that nature. In certain areas, it's a must. In other areas, it's kind of like you might be shooting yourself in the foot, or, you know, some areas are progressive in a way where you want to avoid certain signals kind of showing, you know, social economic backgrounds, could be race, could be gender, could be a lot of different factors involved basically, which could kind of disqualify you, or, you know, because of unconscious bias, limit your chances. And I know it's an unfortunate thing, but that's reality ultimately in certain areas especially. So that's why the photo is that question mark. Do you actually want to add it? As I mentioned in a lot of videos now, really, solid or mature design houses or organizations, teams, try to abstract the names, try to abstract the information, or ask the hiring manager. For example, I remember asking in certain company which had okay-ish hiring practices. I asked the hiring manager to literally take out the names for my teams, be it me reviewing or other people reviewing in my teams, but I would literally ask, can you take out the names? Can you take out addresses besides the country, because that's most recognizable and relevant, and then can you take out like other identifiable things so we don't kind of bias ourselves for whatever reason, you know, because it could be. So that's one thing. So intro, hiya, and I think this is also interesting. I wonder how you would present that friendly hiya. I'm Michelle, with a emoji as well in the actual resume, like the one you would send to the hiring manager or recruiter. I wonder like how would you present, but I like your intro, which is I am dev product unicorn with experience as a UX designer, graphic designer, accessibility lead, and product marketing manager. I'm formerly trained in crisis communications, public relations, and user research. I have special interest in improving processes, inclusive experiences, and putting research at the forefront of everything I create. I currently serve as principal or at XYZ company. This is where I would advise you, Michelle, to think how to add into this group anchor points of why you would be a good people's manager. And that's just because people, you know, people who hire managers are going to be looking for signals that you can manage other folk, and it doesn't have to be direct line manager. Maybe it's a skip level management, or like maybe you were, sorry, not skip level management, to correct myself, maybe you were player coach. As an IC, did you have other colleagues, peers in different teams, in different capabilities? Maybe you established some accessibility processes and you coached people in engineering or business or some other teams. That also boosts your chances and points that you could people manage. So think about this. Like, for example, saying that you did responsibilities of a principal is great, but what did you do to manage other people ultimately? Because that's your goal. And that's where like you could reflect. Again, I don't want to solve it for you because you know your experience, but let's say, and obviously don't fake it, don't make shit up as you go. But let's say, again, if you manage someone or if you coached or you were paired up with other people, you could build up on that, abstract it and say that you were a player coach in this position or this responsibility. And again, I don't know in which one, but you kind of need to like push those things up, those signals up, and tailor it a bit for those positions, because this is the things which could kind of, basically boost you up. In the same route, for example, when people say I'm a principal in relevant experience and I was accessibility lead, you could literally tell me, what does that mean? Have you led a team? Have you led a group? Have you coached, player coach things? Like bullet point number one could be that. if that's your goal. That's how you tailor it ultimately, because you're a principal UX designer, accessibility lead. Sometimes leads lead organizations. Like there are openings. The other week I saw an opening in one of the big tech companies, and that opening was for product design lead. And the actual description of a job spec stated that they would have to lead the group, which had several products, and I don't know how many people, but I read up into it that it's 20, 30 people. Meaning it's not your typical lead where you're lead as a IC, it's a director role ultimately, but certain companies gonna skin it differently. So if there's a bit of that, a bit of people management or broader connecting of the dots, more political side, stakeholder management side, you could mention it. I think it's gonna come into your favor, but you need to reflect and think about that. Oh, sorry, you actually have some things like that's what it's meant in the government's vernacular. I work primarily in training agencies, institutions, and web accessibility testing, as well as updating, redesigning design system and web standards to build accessibility first. Cool. I think one thing to add to that note, and I hope it makes sense, Michelle. I see there's a few notes, and I might be missing. There might be a few things which I'm gonna miss out, but I see Michelle is saying I'm fine with PDFs. I just knew I'd need to redact contact info and such, so you did a Notion link. Okay, that's cool. That's clarified then. Right, let's proceed. There's a lot of stuff. By the way, as I was going through it, the only thing what I prepared for this live stream is copy-pasting these screenshots and just redacting things which could... Obviously, anyone can find information about you. If you're really crafty, you're going to find anyone, these days. Like, you cannot hide anything whatsoever. So, but I try to redact as much as possible, and that's the only thing what I prepared for this live stream. One thing which stood out immediately is how specific and assertive the language is in Michelle's resume. And this is really good thing. Things like I led, conducted, wrote, monitored, identified, performed, worked cross-functionally. You're going to see that there is no things like wireframed and prototyped or things. Even that would be okay-ish, but it's not kind of stating the obvious parts of the role being principal UXer. This is very exemplary, I think. I think, again, not knowing what sort of outcomes Michelle had in her work day-to-day in the projects, maybe she's under NDA and she cannot mention it, but I think it's very specific. Some of it is maybe a bit too verbose, perhaps this one, and this is purely because it's such a big bullet point. I'm almost judging it before reading, so maybe I'm totally wrong, but the hiring managers, again, gonna scan it and try to kind of simplify it. There's a lot here, though. So the only maybe feedback bit on that note for Michelle would be how could you simplify it and reduce it slightly, or distill it into very punchy, very, very hard points and evidence. And then awards. This is the next thing. And sorry, Michelle, I'm gonna skip a few bits on the technical bits because I feel like it's already you are you are positioning yourself as a very skilled person and experienced person. That's solid, basically. I would basically, and again, as a hiring manager, you go for those resumes and you look for keywords, you look for big numbers, that what anchors your opinion. That's how you build the momentum. Obviously, I might read up into it if something catches my eye. Then things like portfolio, then other artifacts is gonna form if I wanna talk to you or not. So resume is just one artifact at that. So that's good for now. Awards. This is really good stuff. And I think because it's leadership development program and you were awarded there, you should really push it up. I think that's it. Whilst it doesn't, I know it's probably part of your role, but I think you could even create a separate section, especially for more senior folk, myself included, in my resume. And I'm not saying it's the best or it's exemplary, but I'm saying you could literally extract a word section because it should serve on its own. It's a solid block of signals ultimately for you to show, okay, this is what, what the what everyone else thinks about me ultimately, instead of me, writing up these factual things. So consider if you want to isolate it and put it as a side thing. And I think this is especially for leadership as well, because leadership and management are going to go hand to hand. You can't really manage people without leading, and that's my take. Some people just lead and they show example, but showing of example is how you actually make other people do and mimic, so to speak, your actions. So you cannot effectively manage without showing a good example, and I think that works in your favor. So, boost it up. I think you shouldn't hide it, even if you aren't. Next one is product marketing manager and player experience consultant. And that's freelance, and it's 21 to 24. I don't even know if freelance matters here, especially when you were for that long. Did you write full-time? Okay, I don't know if it matters. Like, to be honest, the only thing why would that matter if you have very short stints and people would kind of question like how long have you stayed there, because that's what usually goes through people's minds, because they are like seeing something like 3 months or 6 months and they think, oh, is it consultancy, is it freelancing, is it that? But I don't know if I even isolate that. It's up to you. If you hear from recruiters or hiring managers ask you like how much, like what that engagement was like, you could kind of prove it or signal it, but otherwise I don't see the point, and that's my take. And also 3 years of experience in that, even if it's part-timing, fractional role, who the hell cares? You were a very long time there. And what is going to matter more is this bunch of signals where you're going to be like, originally brought on as full-time consultant for a franchise to help refine external. I don't think that adds any value. Again, you not telling things is not really lying about things, but that narrative or that story that, hey, my objectives change or my engagement changed doesn't really serve you nor the person who's going to review, because that's not really big signal. I hope that makes sense. So if you would just say, originally brought blah, 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 to help refine external player experience, good enough. Nobody's gonna care. And you can tell a story in the interviews as well. You don't have to give it all. You don't have to kind of cover all the bases, because it's not against you, it's not for you. It's kind of just robbing the space, which is valuable for other people. What's the comments like? Okay, I usually get asked how I did 2 things at once, but I don't know if that's a flag. What is considered a short stint? Okay, it's 2 different things. So, Michelle, this is maybe interview suggestion, but in your intros, you should nip it in the bud. That's where, like, when you talk about, who I am, introductions, yada, yada, I can tell you what I say. I say, hey, I started 15 years ago. I was an IC. I did this and this and this, roughly speaking, in just like, a few lines. And then I say, most recently, I was managing and establishing different design capabilities and doing this and this and this. And also, I do fractional design leadership or freelancing or advisory work as well on the side. So it could be part of your intro, so people know how it's positioned. And if people are that anal and they go for the detail and they say, why the 2 overlapped? Well, tell them. That's about it. It's like, are they asking or not for it? Not sure what external player experience means. Might be useful to include what the product you worked on does or what it is, just in a couple of words. Interesting. So someone picked up, Cosmos Beta picked up something like refine the external player experience. Okay, so it's a specific detail. Yeah, and I think that would actually make sense, by the way, Cosmos Beta, because what I redacted is, and I don't know if Michelle is going to mind me, but it's a gaming company, a video games company, so to speak. I'm just gonna leave it at that. So it's a game, like you would recognize the games, because I think it's even in the name. So yeah, that I think is one of the things which kind of builds up, and you can see it's games user research, player experience, project management, so forth. Work closely in tandem, so there's a bit of a stakeholder management, developed, coordinated, implemented, play testing. Again, a lot of it's a lot of work. So like one of the things which I had originally as a feedback point, because it was done in Notion, is like suggesting you, Michelle, to almost collapse this. And because I thought that you apply with Notion, you obviously don't, but there is a lot of information here. So I would distill it a bit, and I think only show the highlights, because you're very experienced, you have a lot of experience in this. You have other experience down below, and you basically show two big blocks for these most recent ones. But even then, it's a lot of good stuff, a lot of story, and you obviously showcase the numbers. You show the evidence instead of kind of like trying to abstract it too much, but I think you could summarize it even further, because there is a lot of information here. Drove multiple marketing launches, assessed sentiment, risk of communication, conjunctive marketing communication director by utilizing AI-driven. This, for example, is a good example of that, where assess sentiment and risk of communication efforts in conjunction with a marketing communication director. So I would literally take that out, because that you could call it like you know, it doesn't make you a sole contributor if you say assess sentiment and risk communication efforts by any means, without saying that, hey, it was part of a bigger teams, because everything you did here is going to involve bigger teams. It's for granted. But since you, let's say, were part of it, or you led, or I don't know, managed it, or did some work in it, you can literally say that you contributed at least to that assessment. But that is just very wordy to say, to give in almost like a hat, like a tip of the hat to someone who also participated with you in that project, if that makes sense. I think you can just synthesize it a bit more. AI-driven quantitative sentiment tools and regularly sharing comprehensive dashboards, yada, yada, yada. So one thing which is definitely missing here, which you are not missing here, but I think you would need to make it more evident, is the management experience. And that's, again, I can maybe save time and kind of like formulate it and drop it in the community itself of like, what could that be? Or like, what could those buckets be? But it's to do with a strategy, connecting the dots across the product portfolio. It could be partnership creation. It could be the design operations and improvements to how design is done. And it's everything from boring things like procurement and budgeting to working with OKRs, I don't know, setting goals and performance managing, contributing to how the team is run, things of that nature. Is basically realizing of how much of that management you are doing, and take a guess. Take a look at what's around you. Take a look at what the actual managers are doing, especially if you have that in your firm, and see exactly how much of those tasks are you doing. Because naturally those jobs, they overlap, and naturally you might be doing something or helping them out in something which is their responsibility. But it's basically you need to realize exactly how much of those signals you're doing now, so you can lift yourself up and you can say, hey, I'm actually transitioning and I'm doing some of those things which are needed for the role. Another very cheap way to do so is go and look for what the actual job spec states for that role. So for example, you right now applying for design manager or head of UX or whatever, senior manager roles of sorts, look at what those specs say and what are they stating as a requirement of what you're going to be responsible for, what's the success going to look like, and then see exactly how much of those things you did. Basically make that as a exercise, carve out some time, an hour or two, half a day, reflect and put it all in kind of like in very realistic terms of like how much of that have you done in what cases, boost it up, put those as bullet points, and that immediately positions you for that role. Are you going to get it or not? It's not guaranteed, obviously. But in some cases, that's how people promote themselves, and that's how you can get, if you're a senior, can get a lead role or a staff role and so forth. You basically showcase or say that you're senior enough to do that next thing, laterally or upwards, or you name it, if that makes sense. I'd consider anything less than 2 years as a short stint, and could go up to 3 years if it's multiple short stints on the resume. A few jobs that were all less than 3 years. Well, that doesn't really count as much anymore. And we are heading, again, I'm going to repeat myself a lot, but the theme in my head at least is that the job engagement is going to be lesser and lesser. And layoffs and personal decisions and people, I guess, balancing their life and work and things of that nature, life events, new generational needs and cultural aspects and things of that nature. I think the actual work engagement's shortening. And I already said the future of UX is really a multitude of a lot of the people working as individual companies, businesses of one, gathering together into bigger groups. And I foresee that a lot of organizations are going to be just groups working with consultants and other quote unquote solopreneurs or individual employed people or self-employed people who are going to come together to do the work. And I don't know how far into the future this is. Maybe it's a decade. But with the automation, AI, and so forth, you kind of, I think those lines are going to blur between what's an employee, what's a company, what does it mean to actually have a company, and how you make products and things of that nature. And you could already see a lot of signals of that. That's why I'm kind of basing my projection of like what the future could look like. So I don't think the actual years of experience matter that much anymore, or in the next 5 years, like probably going to matter even less. I'd consider under a year short MO, in my opinion. Staying more than a year is rare. Yeah, so this is also, a lot of the people are going to have less than a year of experience because of reasons. Could be that the company failed through layoffs again, or something else happened, or you had to move for reasons. As long as you can tell the reasons to the hiring manager, it's not going to disqualify. Again, maybe it's me positioning myself as a hiring manager, having reviewed a lot of resumes, but I would never judge the actual resume or a person based off of like how much time they spend, unless it's like serial and you have no idea why, and it looks like permanent positions. I would like see if they have the experience, obviously, and then simply ask, hey, you have a lot of short stints, what's up with that? And if they have good enough answer, then you know it's part of a screening call anyways. So that's kind of like my positioning, and it could be not common, but I think a lot of the hiring managers are sensible, and if you're not, they shouldn't be hiring anyways. But anyways, separate topic, and I could go on around here, but you get my point. Now, so Michelle really splits her resume into 2 parts, which is featured experience. Those 2 big blocks, different also roles. So one was principal UX, this is product marketing, PMM, and player experience. And also you're stating consultant, so that's why freelancing is even more redundant, Michelle, I would say. Anyways, other experience, which is basically, hey, here's more. I would also actually add the link here, Michelle, of LinkedIn, and saying, hey, you can find out more on LinkedIn, because you might have more information on it, or maybe even more experience, especially if it's experience for from other fields or industries or times. So you were lead UI designer, visual graphic designer, and global marketing communication designer. I think what lacked here, I think is a few things. Like this, for example, stood out. So some other bits, you have like a solid contribution, at least with some outcomes. This is, for example, contributing, the first element. The second one has some outcomes to it, the projected contribution, I guess, even if it's not specific, but hey, I did 1 million. It's a team which did 1 million or something like that, or, you know, you contributed to that. Graphic designer didn't so much. So if you can recall, that would help you too, because it breaks the combo a little bit. And then here, marketing and communication designer, you have some countries, clients, things of that nature. Again, if you have any specifics, that also would help you, because it would position you even as a more solid senior specialist, if that makes sense, because you kind of like have it, you know, for a while now. And then CV, the actual education, I think it's fine. One thing which I would maybe think is like actual things which you learned there, because maybe it's also regional, but I would be interested exactly what the inclusive design was like, and if there is any modules or things of that nature which could boost your goals or contribute to your goals. And I see that it's probably current, right? So it's still going. So maybe thinking about that. Even if, let's say, I don't know what could be a good example, but let's say if you're studying now, and I mean, it's maybe gonna add you a bit of work, overhead work, but you could think of like how to position yourself as a player coach within studies. Maybe it's running a play, like some sort of group or some sort of other things, maybe forming a community, things of that nature, basically boosting your social skills and CV that way. Graphic design and marketing, were there anything else interesting basically there? Certified professionals and accessibility, that's fine. Skills and proficiencies, research, prototyping, design, fine. I don't know if Sketch, Figma helps you, apart Adobe Creative Suite from ATS systems matching you, but it's up to you if you want to mention it. I'm just being cautious of like the space in the resume more than anything. One thing which you need to bring here is what's that goal stuff about? Soft skills, leadership skills, strategy, product strategy, design strategy, UX strategy, tactics, things of that nature. And it, again, you want to think like quite broad and try to zoom out, abstract what you're doing, and see exactly how good are you as a people manager, as a principal, connecting the dots, connecting the people, working with people. So it's a lot of soft skills, let's just put it, and rightfully so. I don't want to stamp that stuff, but you could literally state like what are your people management skills, design operation skills, and kind of expand on it. And you have stuff. I'm not trying to inspire you to now go look for it, because you are doing, as a principal, you should be doing, and I'm sure you are doing, because your results speak for itself and you have a lot of the outcomes. To achieve those outcomes, you have to be quote unquote people's person and connect the dots and form partnerships, and also mentor, coach people around you. It could be, again, immediate design team, or it could be teams which are peripheral to you. It's unavoidable. So take that away. I think it's good stuff. You just could do yourself a favor framing some things here. UX wasn't really a thing when I graduated. Not sure who asked in the comments, or at least not in the official title. That makes sense. Thanks. Awesome. Yeah, UX wasn't a thing for, I think UX was part of my studies as a one small fragment. So I studied multimedia design and communication, and it had a lot of a UX, but it wasn't really called that. And then I went into web development, and that's where UX became a module, because as time went by, it became more relevant, irrelevant. So yeah, that's really that. Cool. All right, let me take a break. As per usual, leave any comments you have in a chat, challenge people, add up to people. Always appreciate it. It's much easier for me to review this. Now, I have a little announcement to make, and I think it was best to make it on a live stream too. Talking about resumes, I spent some time behind the scenes creating a little course for resume, for what I call creating a magnetic resume. And if you notice, a while back, at least on newsletters and communities, I kind of announced that I'm working on this thing called uxcareerlab.com. So if you go there, it has been there for a while. You could have purchased my ebook, my Get Into a UX book. But one thing which I was working on behind the scenes is this course, Create Magnetic UX Resume. And it's a course which consists of, I think, roughly 4 hours of video lessons. So it's quite expansive. There's a lot of strategies and tactics there. So if you're interested and you think it's for you, go ahead and look at it. I'm gonna play quickly a quick promo so you know exactly what's there, so I don't waffle too much into the thing. And I see new book. Maybe it's coming too. I have a lot of projects in the books, and I mentioned a lot of projects already, but this is one of them which got out quite soon. But maybe I'm gonna tease it afterwards, but I have some thoughts about management books or books for more experienced people too. But anyways, let me play a video if I can, so you know what's this. Hey, I'm V from VAEXPERIENCE, and I have something super exciting to share with you today. It's a brand new video course called Create a Magnetic UX Resume. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't matter what the market conditions are, you're always going to face very stark competition. There's going to be hundreds of people applying for the same position. So your best bet is really to invest in making your resume as magnetic as it can be, because it has to start conversations and clearly show the evidence that you can do the job. And this is exactly why I created this course, to charge your resume up and level it up to that magnetic state. But let me stop talking here and show you exactly what the course contains, because it has 5 exciting modules. And these are filled with multiple hours of video lessons, tools, checklists, and everything you might need on a journey to make your resume better. For example, in module 1, you're gonna get the intro to a course. Again, I told you exactly why it matters, why this is for you. I'm also gonna give you a few tips of how to make the best of this course. In a module 2, we're gonna talk about what resumes are, how do resumes work, who's involved in the process, what do they think about from hiring and recruiter management perspective. We're gonna talk about the invisible touch points of the actual resume and why it's so important to get the resumes right. Think of it as a discovery, as a foundational understanding, which likely is going to reset some of the notions you had before. And in this specific course, I want you to basically avoid those mistakes before it's too late, because sometimes you might be applying for 100 jobs and then only at the end realize, oh crap, this specific formatting or these specific themes just didn't work in your benefit. So you kind of have to then go back and be like, crap, how many opportunities did I kill, not understanding exactly what matters and why. This is exactly what we're going to try to rebuild. Next one, we're going to talk about what makes certain resumes successful, but we're going to obviously start with what fails. Then we're going to follow up with what matters and what works. So it doesn't matter what position you take or how many years from now it is from you watching this, course or video, you opting in and learning from this. I want you to be able to reflect and kind of review your resume always objectively, and understand exactly what could fail or trip it, or work as a bedrock basically, where you can build up more and more experience as you go and only extract the bits which matter to the, let's say, the job applications or you creating it. And the next module after that, which is module 4, is really the making of the resume, where I'm gonna ask you to actually create me a resume with no limits. Obviously, you're already gonna have the principles, the tools. Again, I'm gonna share you Notion files and templates and things of that nature, which is gonna highlight exactly what you need to put in a resume. Later on, we can tailor and create multiple resumes. And bada bing, bada boom, the last module obviously is going to be about usage of the resume. So this is where we're going to introduce the art of tailoring. If you've been following me for a while, you know on my YouTube videos, I'm adamant that you must tailor your resumes. Doesn't have to be said, but I'm going to show you how to tailor the resume. There's going to be also bonus resources. So you can expect templates, you can expect checklists. I'm going to give you the support you need to convert your resume or create your resume. And of course, there's a ton more in this course. I cannot give it all in just a few minutes. So make sure to explore, make sure to opt in if this is for you, and I'll see you there. Cool. So that's that. That's a big, small announcement. If this is for you, again, make sure to look at uxcareerlab.com for a launch, or actually restricted to the live stream. I hope it's going to cover. If you're interested, choose the code magnetic and you're going to get 30% off the actual course. But take a look at it. If this is for you, opt in, because there's a lot in it. Again, 4 hours of video lessons, the tools, the checklists, so a lot of exercises, or at least I'm asking people to do a lot of work. So I'm giving the tools, but obviously you still need to do the work. But if you enjoy my videos, I think it adds value to you. So make sure to explore again. And if it's for you, opt in. Otherwise, look for free resources. Don't try to just, work with the resume, which might not be performing. My point is like to make it magnetic and to make it actually attract the attention instead of just kind of, disappearing in 100 or 200 people application. So check that out. Again, it's out there. Now, let's resume. And I see some people are excited. That's good to hear. I think with the next resume, which is slightly different, we are going to dive into ring cache. And ring cache is, I see ring cache is actually on the live stream, which is perfect. Looking for junior product design roles, so very early or entry level, or maybe adjacent to what ring cache is doing now. Currently, I do have experience with a B2B SaaS company as a freelance product designer. Let me just note those down, because those are the signals I'm looking for, or at least that's what maybe we can shape the advice with or based upon. I have been leading design for them from past 10 months. And leading design to me then I guess means that you are a company of one, right? Or sorry, UX team of one, so to speak. In that case, do let me know in the chat if that's correct, because I might be getting that wrong. But I'm unsure about how to market it in my resume, if that makes sense, for better opportunity. So marketing in a resume is exactly what a lot of the people struggle, and where I'm trying to give my advice based upon, because again, every person does something, does deliver value. It's just, can you actually evidence it? Can you show it what it is? But it's also, I don't have that magic touch. You have to do the work. You have to reflect. So everything I tell you, take it with a grain of salt. Reflect how much you actually have done. Never fake it, and just see exactly what you can project. That's very general principle. As with Michelle, I blanked out all the different things in the resume, because that where it kind of like, just not to display anything personal. And let's see, work experience. So since last October to present, you were a freelance product designer, and this is, I guess, the B2B SaaS company. Immediately, I might jump forward and tell you that B2B SaaS company should be in your skills, and SaaS especially, because SaaS is very hot shit right now. So a lot of the companies who are product houses, I'm gonna be, they're gonna be looking for those keywords. And I see a lot of people are saying team of one is head of design, JK. Well, you're joking about it, but that usually is how people get the head of design role. Obviously, don't say it. One thing which I would kind of question is if freelance age you in this regard. A lot of people, I guess Michelle did the same thing where she added freelance designer, but doesn't really matter unless asked. You could literally maybe add a bullet point which states that you were fractional. Fractional is a fancy word for freelance, by the way. So that's another spin to it. But you could say that you were fractional or freelance, supporting this company for this amount of time, basically. Or maybe, interviews, I don't know, like, it's just a thing, because it's a first position, freelance is a type of work. It's how you deliver. It adds more questions, or puts you a bit below than just a product designer, because product designer would state that you are very established, So just think about it this way. And it's not about faking it again. It's just about, like, is it really necessary to tell it now? Can you tell it in the screening call? once you have the attention. So first and foremost, the skills, and I'm quickly kind of glossing it over, but add those things like B2B, SaaS, industries you could also add. In my course, by the way, I focused a lot on these kind of things on a bucket, basically, for skills, because skills are not just technical. Just like I said and asked Michelle to basically think about people management and strategy and stuff like that, this could be another group, another bucket where you double down on. So Rinkesh, in your perspective, it could be also industries, technologies, channels. One thing which is always boggling in my mind is that people don't list that they, let's say, worked with AR or VR, which is like, why? Working with a specific technology, like even with the mobile apps for mobile phones, is a channel. There's a lot of skills involved in that. You don't need to list them all, like, you know, being able to work with mobile patterns and understanding HCI details and stuff like that. But you can state that, you know, these are the industries, these are the channels, yada, yada. You basically can preface that. If you don't it in a resume, at least you should list it out in the portfolio. So think where it's more appropriate. But I think you're not marketing all your capability, because if you're working in a B2B SaaS, there is a lot more to the picture. Take it away, reflect on it, come back and add some more details which would aid you. Because you were stating here, SaaS provider, redesigned the company website to match our new role as a SaaS provider, designed an ERP system, designed, redesigned, designed. You see how different that is from someone like Michelle's, and I don't want to compare apples, you know, to apples here, because it's different. You're very junior, Michelle is very senior, but designed and things of that nature is already expected of you to do. Even if you're very junior, you could position yourself as a more senior by using more assertive language and more outcome-oriented language here. So, you know, designed an ERP system from scratch to help business manage employees more efficiently would be a question of like, how more efficiently? Like, is there a result there you can attach or bring to this? That should lead it. It shouldn't be about design. Design is expected because you are a product designer. That's what you do. That's what you're there for. Just like a dentist would hopefully fix, you know, teeth and prevent, you know, tooth disease or something along those lines. Out of my, you know, wheelhouse here, but you get my point. It's expected of you to do that. But what are the results in that role of UX, business impact, things of that nature? Reflect exactly, because if you're still there, you're able to quickly or relatively quickly to recap, exactly recall the details. So for example, you're saying improving onboarding and giving clear view of information on a dashboard. Like, why does that matter? Like, what's that improved onboarding like? Is it improving the conversion rates? Is it clear? Like, is it based on UX factors, like it's improved clarity for users and you know the details of that? Maybe user tested it. You could bring that up. Basically boosting it up more with the details of the outcomes instead of, you know, the perceived, you know, the usual details, basically. And here's a typo, by the way, just to point that out. Small detail, it's not gonna kind of fail you, because a lot of the designers are, you know, dyslexic or not kind of like too interested in copy, but I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying, you know, it's not going to fail you in any means. Stealing that word. Michelle, which word? Agree, in this case, I would take out freelance, not needed, especially since it's your first. Yeah, such a good point. Freelance or full-time, both our jobs create value. Yeah, exactly my point as well. And again, don't hide it, don't fake it. If they ask you, you just say, hey, you know, I'm part-timing, freelancing, whatever makes most sense. But you can say, I'm basically studying and developing my UX skills whilst also working for this company. Happy days. I think you said fractional instead of freelance. Yeah, fractional is the new freelance. Yeah, you can borrow it. Typically, the UX leaders, like for example, when I do advisory work for startups, and you know, it could be very like technical or tactical. It doesn't have to be like pure strategy, go-to-market strategy, stuff like that. I might be literally doing them research planning or discussion guide creation or research ops or designing wireframes or fixing bits and calling out in design reviews what's wrong, what's not wrong. That's fractional work, fractional design leadership work at that. It doesn't matter at what level. So, you know, borrow it, take it, use it, you know, why not? It's just a word. Anyhow, I'm gonna jump down. I see that you have track portfolio company performance. Can you extract some performance details? Again, it's gonna age you. And if you want to take that course, by the way, which I created, that would give you a few examples of, you know, what you can do. I have a checklist for that, but it's not rocket science. Just think exactly what that contributes for the user and the actual company. And because you're junior, now is the right time to do so. Because if you think about those details, the next project or that next initiative, that next intervention for that SaaS product is going to be much more guided towards measuring the design value. And that always adds value to your resume because you're going to be much more specific in your communication, resume, and so forth. Cool. Let me jump into the project. And I presume, by the way, I might be wrong, but I presume the projects, these are different from the experience you have. I think you should add links if you can. It doesn't have to become a portfolio, but because you're a junior, visualizing it easier to understand what they are. And here, put some keywords of what the solution is like, what it's about, what sort of experience is like. You know, when I review portfolios, I tell people to think about the value the user got, the business value that it was. So let's say if you worked on a new app, even if it's self-directed work, and it's meant to introduce something into a new market and make Acme Labs more competitive, you could literally state that, but also state exactly what's the value to the user and maybe even mention the channel. So let's say mobile app, AR, VR experience, what sort of experience it is and what does that entail? Is it generative AI experience? Is it enterprise tool? Is it SaaS software? That immediately positions your project. And if a person, or let's say if you're applying for a company which is SaaS and the hiring manager is looking for that next designer, they're looking, oh, that person has done some project at the minimum for Gen AI or some other keyword, they're going to be much more inclined to dig into it. And that's how you hook them in. And that's what I call magnetic, because your keyword or your information you have in your experience and listing in resume charges up the, you know, the freaking electromagnetic field between you and the hiring team, and the two hopefully attract each other. So that's what I would be kind of looking to do. I know you have mentions of redesigning, design, things of that nature. Again, same things apply. Can you quantify? Can you lead with examples or outcomes even better? So there is some evidence of what the outcome is like. And yeah, it's a personal project from the comments. Agree, delivering a project in a challenging timeline or resolving stakeholder issues to deliver a project count as a result, IMO. There are also companies who will value that you have experience in a sales-led environment, especially if you have experience in both sales-led. Yes, absolutely. A lot of the companies are striving for the PLG right now, and that's because the product management has been pushed away sometimes, or maybe didn't have a solid footing. And PLG has been all the hot shit for, you know, for product management. So everybody's crazy about it. And that's because a lot of the companies who are successful, especially in a B2B sector, they are sales-led. The balancing act or working for sales-led and taking it to PLG, a massive signal, especially if you're going to be reporting for a product lead or product management or product leadership generally. So that's a skill set as well. That's a skill family. That's an example of type of work, of type of challenges. Again, you can populate your resume if you have that type of experience, whoever you are, not just Rinkesh. Again, a lot of the advice here is general because these are the themes I see in a lot of resumes. I mean, they're just repeated because we come from the same perspective where I'm, you know, you're not sure exactly what to tell, granted you do so much work, but what exactly resonates, what doesn't. And then education, management college, mass media studies. Pepper in some information of what that entails. Just like I said to Michelle, I mean, her examples maybe are a bit more self-explanatory, but here you could pepper it in exactly what it is, because it's not, you know, your resume is a starter resume. You just kicked off. You want to pad it. So the moment you're going to start adding information, your information density also going to have to increase. So everything here is going to be zoomed in, and you're going to add more and more information until you're having too much information and you need to cut down. But before you have that problem, your key problem now is to really show more evidence and also show more of those peripheral skills and experience, which you might think is relevant, but it is. So, you know, if in doubt, just add more information, and then again, try to engage someone on a design squad community. Maybe tag me if I have time, I'm gonna come back to it. But ask exactly, like, is this relevant? Is it not? To what extent you could trim it down, distill it? But basically, it's good that you kept it that short, but I think you could, there's definitely media studies, mass media studies, there's definitely signals in there which could resonate with potential people, especially if you apply for certain roles or certain companies. Not to go back and make this as a sales pitch, I don't want to do that at all, but in my course, I focus the last module, the 5th module, exactly on tailoring it, because everybody, like even Michelle, has this grand resume, but it doesn't mean she's going to be successful in every single position. That's just not how the world works. Maybe 10, 20 years ago, that's how it was, that like hiring managers were hungry for this new skill set that UX is. So they would get you on even if you don't have B2B SaaS experience, if they were B2B SaaS. Right now, it's not the case because we have, again, 100, 200, 300 candidates. So you need to be very like laser focused. You need to pick the job spec and spend enough time freaking studying it to understand what they need. And if they don't really need your skills, your application is going to be a very wild shot from the hip. It's not going to be very targeted in that. And that's what I'm trying to spend in. Maybe I'm going to create a follow-up video just as a free content on my channel of how to tailor resumes. I'm happy to give that out. But if you're interested in that, you know, pick up the actual course. Again, I'm talking about this. So the principles are, I'm giving it away. What I'm showing in the course is obviously more tactical. But if you pick up the principles and you consider these things, you're immediately going to arrive at better conclusions and results with your resumes. I hope that makes sense. All right, let me see what the chat is saying. I'm going to take another sip. Jake asking, Cosinus Beta, how would you present this in a concise way? Successfully led company to new product launch in sales-led environment and aggressive timeline. I mean, that's it, Jake. You could take that. Obviously, if you have specifics of what that success looks like, what that new product launch look like in terms of the results, what was the delta between sales-led and product-led. So I'm gonna just shoot from the hip again and create this on a spot. Again, bear with me, and I'm gonna be way off of here, but let's say, obviously you need to reward, and this is not gonna be what I would leave in my resume. You would need to wordsmith it a lot. But if you would say that you led the X product launch successfully, which resulted in, I don't know what the metric could be, product adoption being higher by some sort of metric like conversion rates, or onboarding much more successful by X, or usability improvement by Y, and something else by Z, because you went from sales-led to product-led, is plenty. Obviously, you could split it up into different bullet points. And I'm answering this for Jake instead of Cosinus Beta, but that would be my approach. It's kind of like ways to skin it. Look for those themes, reflect, recap, go back on that memory lane to kind of understand it. I hope that makes sense. I got an advice saying keep it one pager, but yeah, yes, you can keep it one pager, but my point was exactly that, because you can decrease the information density. With Udipta, I'm going to use your resume as an example, and sorry, I don't like to do this, to point out one versus the other, because it's like, it's going to set weird expectations. That's not exactly what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is show that Ringcash, this is A4, both of them, right? The same sheet of paper, same exact amount, similar layouts is obviously different, it's 2 columns, but you can see the density of information. And information density is a big thing in product design as well, and UI design. So just like you would add more features to the UI or a product, same way you can add more features to your resume, and the information density has to adapt. So if you change the size of the text to fit it more, you have to change the headline size, you have to add visual means to split the sections, maybe some colors, stuff like that. As you can see, this is Udipta's resume, right? Like, and Udipta is a bit more senior, I presume, right? But that's how you could handle it. Just because there is more information here and stuff, nobody's gonna dismiss it or, you know, do that. And also, if another thing, which I also cover in the course, by the way, if you have 2 pages, you're not failing. It's just that, you know, you need to link the continuation between the 2 pages, but also consider that page 2 information should be probably secondary, and you need to sell your information on page 1. That's what the page 1 quote unquote rule of thumb is. And rule of thumb is really, you know, just rule of thumb. Take it with a grain of salt, do whatever you want. Some people do it on a website or in Notion, like Michelle did, even if, you know, she just did it for a demo. But it's up to you how you treat it. My point is, the shorter, the better, the more concise, but it has, the resume is like a good book. It's as short as it needs to be to tell a good story so that you are the right candidate, right? So if you think you have more and you need to have more space, expand it. 1 page, ideal. 2 page, good enough, great. More than that, probably not so much, because people are gonna lose the, you know, trail of thought, and they're not gonna know much. Like, also, people, the recency bias, you know, the UX factors and things of that nature, perception kicks into, not to get too technical, UX serves psychology like, but the most recent experience is always going to be something which people are actually caring mostly about. That's why I think Michelle did a pretty good job to show 2 and then saying, hey, I have more. And also I would say add link to LinkedIn if you want to check out more stuff, courses, skills, posts, whatever, social things and so forth. So the recency here kicks in a lot. But I hope that makes sense. This is like a download of what I would do. Neza Inwi, I hope I pronounced that right, asks, is Udipta's resume optimized for ATS? Here's a twist, and it's a very good segue. I love when these things happen. Udipta sent 2 resumes. One is the stylized, and another one is ATS optimized. And Udipta, if you are in the chat, could you tell the chat why you did that? Because I can give the answer, but I think your reasoning is gonna resonate much more while I read what other people say. Oh, I see. It's Jake again with PLG, SLG, transfer, Delta. Yeah, Jake, I think sales, huge confidence, gave like yada yada. That's huge. Just like Cosmos Beta is spot on that. You have results, you have success. Put it on your resume. You might think that UX is just about UX. No, UX contributes to bottom line and all these operational, organizational successes. I have no idea why people think that UX is just about UX. Again, you're shooting yourself in the foot if you limit yourself with just usability and stuff like that. You do those things so the business succeeds, so that their customer actually has better experience and chooses the product of your employer. That's all it is. It's a job, right? So you are there to contribute, not to demean, you're there to contribute to a bottom line. Harshly put, you know, sad truth, but the truth. And as such, the results matter. The more business-oriented outcomes, the more senior you're going to be perceived as. And as you go, the more kind of specific, concise your example is going to be, the work experience highlights and things of that nature, which is great. Exactly what the hiring teams would be looking for. Again, not every shoe fits on every foot, or what's a better analogy? You get my point. Basically, not every bait is gonna catch that fish in that specific pond. So you need to know exactly who you're targeting and who you want to hook and attract and magnetize. Again, going back to my course, you basically need to be quite selective, even if maybe you don't have a choice. But what's that gonna force you to do is to tailor your resume. Because again, you're gonna have so many experiences you're not even thinking about. Like Jake here, prime example, mate. You did good job. You have decent results for organization, sales, stuff like that, but you didn't think about it this way. Now you do, bam, put that in your resume as a result. A big achievement. And Udipta is answering what or why he chose to do 2 sheets. One is when I'm sure the recruiter or hiring manager will see the resume, when I have a good connection. And the other is ATS optimized when I'm applying through job portals randomly. Yeah, that's spot on. This is what Udipta didn't even take my course because it just launched, but I can guarantee, or I can tell for sure that one of the lessons is really that approach. This is not going to spoil much anything, but in a course, I basically state the same thing. Also, UX is never that detached. Even, let's take something else. Like I saw a TikTok the other day where a recruiter or hiring manager was saying, hey, I'm reviewing these data analyst roles or some sort of data engineering role of sorts, and she was saying how she has to review 80 resumes, applications, and she goes application by application because no ATS system is that precise to make you the relevant candidate. The hiring managers are so starved for talent that they still read every single resume. They still look for detail. They still need to read into it. So I'm going to make a bold statement, but optimizing the resume for ATS system is almost pointless with some exceptions, and I'm going to cover that too. And why I'm saying that is because, again, the design teams are small. They're never massive. Like there's always a person who's going to be reviewing your resume. Some companies, like let's say big tech, Google is one. I worked for another big company, which I'm not going to name for the reasons. But there the ATS systems would basically, and I've seen it behind the scenes, there's a lot of them, like Brass Ring is one, Workday is another one. You submit your resume, and then it shows the confidence in like a progress bar that this candidate could be 70% there. Recruiters can't make a decision just by clicking on one. They literally have to still review every single candidate. An exception to this is that right now there are hundreds of candidates, so companies obviously going to default to listening to ATS systems first and then reviewing them manually. But that is limited to still selected few industries and companies which are massive. Global conglomerates, like if you would apply for energy sector or a global bank, that's the ones where I would use ATS resume or optimized resume. That would be my thinking. And that's because, again, there's going to be so many people who apply for it and we have those things in place. Startups, scale-ups, mid-sized companies, all going to read through resumes. And you can never say 100% guarantee this, but mostly that's what's going to be the case. Because again, there is a lot of candidates out there, but to fit the specific bill for that specific employer, it has to match, again, for recruiters, keywords, for hiring managers, specialty, stuff like that. It has to match up. So that's my thinking again. And again, I'm downloading a lot of the stuff I added to the course, so you're getting freebies. But Udipta does it well. I have 2 also resumes, by the way. I have exactly the same thing what you did. I'm doing the same thing. If I apply and I know that ATS would benefit me, I apply that version. And also, like, you just obviously need to keep them both in line and kind of update both. But some ATS systems or some application portals, I think powered by BrassRing, I might get that right because I worked on HR systems and hiring experience back in the day. It's one of the big cases in my portfolio, by the way. It's such a good case. But I engaged with a lot of hiring managers and kind of mapped that all out, and there's two tools. And some of the tools, you might experience that the same if you go on a banking or something, allow you to attach multiple files. So what I do, I attach the ATS enhanced version, and I also attach the stylized or custom version. So that's another way. If in doubt, go with ATS system. But again, it's not going to impress all of you. In my course, it's not going to impress all the recruiters or hiring team. In my course, I have an example where I was applying for Google. I was a senior back in the day, and I had a person who referred me. That position wasn't successful, by the way, but I had the person who referred me, and I set my resume, which was ATS enhanced, and the person, or ATS optimized, and the person basically said, this doesn't look like, and putting it very nicely, this doesn't look like designer's resume, because I've seen designer's resumes at Google. So go out there and make it custom. That's what the feedback I got. Times change, methods change, things of that change, but also consider what sort of company you apply for and what the designer resumes would look to nail those jobs. Without giving even examples, you already should have ideas that it should be clean enough, understandable enough, look good enough, and presentable enough. Doesn't have to be over-designed, because that's a sin of resumes. Anyways, we got off piste here and went on tangent, but you get my point. I'm happy whenever I see a company doesn't use Workday to get candidates. LOL. Yeah. And also Michelle gave a good hack or live hack. Now type all the other after uploading it. So that's another thing. It's like if you apply for ATS systems, they usually are, it's a good problem, but they designed to, they scrape your customized resume and then they ask you to correct or add the additional detail. So it even more doubles down on that notion that you don't really have to have optimized resume, as long as you are good to copy paste the information to those fields they have. Obviously manual labor and things of that nature, but right now we have no choice. We have to go extra mile to do that work to kind of showcase ourselves. So again, having two resumes, two options, two versions, one ATS optimized, one non-ATS optimized, and then make a decision based on a company size, what system they use, do they allow to attach you different things, and then maybe copy pasting it from ATS template. Very simple solution, which I'm glad Udipta added this, because I gave away like a lesson from my course. Awesome. All right, so let's read into it, because we spent quite a bit of time just going on the formats and stuff like that. I'm looking for a role in UX research or end-to-end UX design roles. So those two would be two different resumes to me, Udipta. And also it would be two different portfolios as well. Whilst end-to-end design roles would encompass UX research, it would also be more product design biased, or usually is right now in this market. And you have to agree with that. If you see UX designer role, it probably means that there's going to be product design with some user research. Obviously, it could vary, but right now, most of the openings are very biased by product design. And then you obviously still have a lot of the openings for user research. So I would basically create two resumes and two portfolios. And I have done that in the past, by the way, in better times as well. Now it's more relevant. I have two portfolios. One is super heavy on research and just research. And then I have a portfolio for end-to-end, which is reflective of strategy and product design and yada, 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 basically. Oh, and even product design roles. So that's even more so. Whereas you could nail product design and UX roles with one resume, UX research might need very hard specialization, where, it's just research, basically. It's usually just that. aiming at mid-level roles, so beyond senior, applying for junior-ish roles because the market is bad. And that's fair. By the way, roles, I know people say roles or titles don't matter for people who already have good titles. I totally agree. But roles and stuff like that doesn't really matter. Just what you do in a job. Having 2 junior roles, or, you know, it doesn't mean, it's still years of experience which add up. So also it's much more likely to be promoted. Like it works almost in your favor if you go and move laterally, especially in a tough market, because you can prove even further that you can do that work. And even if you apply for that next job for, let's say, mid-level or senior roles, and they say, oh, you did 2 junior roles, what's up with that? You can say, yeah, I was mastering my craft and now I'm looking to move up because I was doing already a lot of that mid-weight role capabilities. So it doesn't stop you. It doesn't stunt your growth by any means. Again, years of experience counts a lot because you can combine so much experience, and what you do on a job, what matters most in these roles. So yeah, I'm gonna skip that. I'm gonna presume that you're looking for just product designer role or UX designer or UX research role, but both resumes and portfolios might look different again. Cool. And that's the resume. Let me just check the chat quickly. Can you give some advice for entry-level designer? Bushan, what's the problem? That would be easier to give advice. If it's for resume, pull back or watch the replay of this live stream, because Rick Shan's resume was exactly that. It was junior-ish entry level. I gave a lot of the different tips and pointers and things of that nature. Make sure to check that out. If you have specific problem, call that up, or even better, join the Design Squad community on Discord, where you can ask a question. There is a get help channel, a careers advice channel, things of that nature. You can join and ask. But as with everything, the more specific the ask, the more likely you're gonna get the answer you seek or you need to get, if that makes sense. Cool, all right. So Udipta, UX designer and researcher. I would add how many years, maybe you could preface. Again, I usually give an advice that to keep the intro short, but you could kind of pepper in some things so people don't have to do math, basically. If you have 3 years of experience, add that. You know, skilled UX designer and user research strategist with 3 years of experience in B2B SaaS, blah, 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 boom, 1 line, your intro, because then it's going to kind of tell what that specialization is. And obviously, if you tailor it to some sort of specific position, you can then basically pull those, do new keywords. If it's a different kind of customer experience gig or user research gig, again, you tailor it in, obviously, as long as you have done that. Some formatting stuff. So I think Sweden, you could also state here that you're seeking remote if you want to within EU, for example. So that kind of opens it up a bit more because I'm sure you're open to it. Phone, email, LinkedIn, portfolio, that's totally fine. I think you could just condense it a bit more because everything else is condensed, and this is purely formatting advice, very little bit. I'm gonna start with education because I was on top of it. Human-computer interaction, so this is still ongoing. Again, you could pepper exactly what you're learning. Bachelor's degree in computer science and engineering. Was there anything to do with UX? You could pepper in a few words, literally. It could be modules, like let's say in my resume, when I was doing web development, I stated that I was developing iOS apps, native apps myself, and also UX fundamentals, something else. Basically, I just say, this is what I learned there, which is relevant to this application or to this role I'm seeking. Certification programs, sorry, not problems. User experience, yada, yada. You could state, okay, that's okay. On Coursera, yeah, that's cool, that's good. I would even maybe condense it a bit further because it takes a lot of space. That's just one thing. Your skills, I know I'm working backwards and I might miss a lot of things, by the way, so forgive me. Research, design, do you have anything to do with business product strategy as well? And I know you're saying junior seeking mid-weight positions. Still, I mean, even if you're a junior, you're working with business needs, stakeholder management, partnership creation, UX strategy, product strategy, you know, general operational bits and bobs, skill sets, basically. Soft skills could be too. Like, I don't know why people don't add soft skills, because it's key to every role. And I like that you extract tools altogether, which is good, because it isolates. Because when you pepper it in the skills, it's like, you know, debatable if it's even a skill, because you can learn a tool in a weekend. Volunteering as well. I think this kind of like, it works as a project or work experience. I mean, you could state like volunteering, but what would add more gravitas? And this is not lying, by the way, but I think you could state that this other relevant work experience or other project work or something along those lines. Because volunteering seems like you're just doing it. Again, I don't want to demean it by any means. I hope that comes through in the right way. Not by any means, but I think it's just that you can position it more, because it's what you're doing is way more. It's not volunteering at, I don't know, a running race on a weekend, if that makes sense. This is totally extreme. I'm taking it like off piece, right? And I know some of you might volunteer. I'm saying you might not add it to your resume to get a UX designer job unless you want to. But I think this is kind of like Association for Human-Computer Interaction chairperson is a big thing. Chairing something is a big damn thing. I would even be interested exactly what your responsibilities are there, especially if you're a junior midweight person. So I think you're not doing yourself a favor hiding it or simplifying it like that. And this is purely from narrative perspective. You can tell a better narrative, if that makes sense. Because you're doing it, everybody's going to understand what it is. It's fractional chairperson, not to overuse that. Obviously, don't use that. Student representative, master's program in human-computer interaction. Again, depends what that means. I don't know what that means again. But again, this is work you did or are still doing, and sounds like you're doing more than was expected. Bam, exemplary work, going above and beyond. To what extent to be seen, but you can do a bit more into it, if that makes sense. What would be an example of expanding on the CV education? Courses or degree descriptions, description of thesis? Could be. Michelle, I've seen some people, as you were mentioning thesis, I hired some seniors back in the day, and one of them was a PhD, but they basically in their projects, like, hey, this is exemplary project, they have a really big paper. I think if you Google it, I don't want to mention their names, that would be unfair. Because again, I don't want to make examples of people, even if it's their work, but they have some human-computer interaction background and PhD in human-computer interaction, a senior designer, and they have a paper for HCI, a big one too, like one of the foundational papers, if you ask me. And they have that paper named as a master thesis, as a paper they contributed to, like basically as a project. So, you know, that's how you could expand it. It's not even the education. It's almost like you're going beyond that. You're basically doing something which nobody asks you to do of value, if that makes sense, shaping the design field. So that's a big one. That would be an example. Another example is modules. So Michelle, you're studying, let's say a random thing. Let's say you're studying, or let's say UDIPTA. Sorry, again, examples, right? Human-computer interaction. Let's say UDIPTA studies that. There is modules. There is like, or modules maybe is not the right term. I'm translating it from, you know, foreign languages, but like, what does that degree consist of? Like, what are you actually learning? What sort of subjects, and what are you actually contributing to, and what is it ultimately? Like, human-computer interaction is great, but is there, I don't know, like some sort of AI design course, this is what you're learning or learned. Is it machine learning related? Is it something to do with data science? Is it something to do with specific human-machine interaction? Is it something to do with hardcore UX design, UX research? Like basically listing that out tells exactly what you learned that. You don't have to be more specific, but just listing them out like this, like research skills, this is maybe what you dipped learned in that specific degree. And this is most relevant for super junior people who are coming in and they don't have enough experience of project work and stuff like that. Then dig deep and show exactly what you learn, because it's harder to hire someone who has a degree in human-computer interaction than someone who has learned user research and UX design. I hope it makes sense. Area of emphasis, I think, is how we call it here. Yeah, might be. You also have majors and minors and things of that nature, right? Like in terms of the courses and stuff, or what you focus on. That could be another thing. I wouldn't go as deep as like giving degrees or like, what is that, GPA, CPA, whatever it is. I don't even know, honestly. But in some resumes, you find that. I think, not to give example with that, but this CGPA, I think it's relevant maybe within some regions, so don't take my word as a gospel. Obviously, always bloody tailor stuff to where you're applying for, because if you take my advice to completely remove this, you might be shooting yourself in the foot, because every other candidate within that market is applying with that. So make that judgment, do your judgment. But if nobody else puts it in the resume, there might be a reason to it. Obviously, they might be wrong. So, just think about it ultimately. I think that would matter a lot if you're just coming out of a degree and you have no projects, no work experience. Rinkesh has a freaking work experience. So that would what I would lead to, not with that, if you ask me. I would double down, because October is almost here. So it's almost like 1 year soon to be. Another few months, 2 months, and Rinkesh is going to be 1 year at that company working as a product designer. Massive. I mean, massive experience, if you ask me. Okay. So Bushan has responded with more specific. I'm having trouble finding my first UX design internship. I'm specifically looking for remote internships, and I'm comfortable with unpaid opportunities. Could you give me some advice? One advice would be to join Design Squad community, because in a job board, there is a lot of people who are seeking for designers, especially if you're saying you're open and comfortable with unpaid opportunities. I'd never advise that to do. But if you do and you have time on your hands, join it and freaking engage with those people and say, hey, I need to learn. Can we treat it as a design internship, or can I freelance for you? You don't even have to position it as a design internship. Basically, then work and learn on a job, as an on-a-job training. Alternative, if you want to learn and shadow more experienced designers, so you can truly get the internship and be almost like an apprentice. Cold emails. Go literally company by company, agency by agency. You could even reach out to specific designers. So for example, myself, I do employ some people when I need for different projects, and I literally treat them as an apprentice, because that's how the employment is basically. Sometimes it's freelancing, sometimes it's apprentice. But people who run their own gigs, and this is massive pet peeve of mine, because a lot of people who go into consulting in UX and they own their own limited companies or businesses, they don't really support the designers who come behind them. They don't add a ladder or support for a ladder, and this kind of pisses me off, because I feel like they're the ones who can actually make apprenticeships happen. So you can also be bold and try to engage with people. Obviously, don't expect anything. At the worst, you might have, you could build a connection or network, or get mentorship advice. At the best, you could land something. Granted, times are different now, but if I pull back to my days, the first internship I got was literally in Denmark, and I was I think, penultimate year before I finished my degree, and part of a degree was also finding internships. And like, you basically had to find an internship, and a lot of people were faking it too, by the way. They were creating their own limited companies and then quote unquote employing themselves as interns, which obviously don't condone that, but just as an example, obviously don't do that. What people like myself did though, I literally Googled and spent like a week or two every day emailing 10 or so companies, everything I could find my hands on, like every company in Aarhus, Denmark, every company in Copenhagen, every company in Aalborg, in all the different cities and stuff, like the smallest of the cities. I Googled and found an agency who did digital design or anything to do with digital. And I literally emailed them and said, hey, I'm willing to do it for free, because that's how internships are in Denmark. Take me in. I'm going to do anything you want, basically. These are the skills I have. This is my portfolio, short cover letter, basically. I'm open to join you within these months for this time. You know, I can literally work for free. And that's how I landed my internship. Obviously, times are different. Regions are different. But depending where you are, consider when this could be an approach. You could literally, you know, don't print out your resume and go to the company, but you can do that through the internet, and you can seek those internships and apprenticeships and things of that nature, or you can freelance. But again, the easiest way, join the community and DM those people who post and say, hey, I'm a developer who's seeking a person to help me out to design this brand new app or something like that. And you're going to be the one, it's me. Let's talk, let's chat, let's do this as a team work. So it's a self-directed entrepreneurship element, and you can work on that. Again, I'm giving you a lot, but I hope that makes sense. There are ways to do so. I know it's very hard for everyone right now, as experienced people too, but especially those who try to still break in and get their experience in. And you know, it's getting better. I don't know when it's gonna recover fully and to what extent, if it's gonna recover fully, but you have to do what's in your control, and you have to basically get out there and position yourself as someone who's open to that. I hope that makes sense, and I hope it helps you. Okay, Rishab, I'm updating my resume with my recent internship experience, and I'm unsure how to best describe my work. I'd appreciate some insights on how to do that. So, I don't know, Rishabh, when you joined, it's a shameless plug, but I announced a course. I don't want to keep upselling it. Go back and watch, by the way, if you want a free advice, go back and watch how I reviewed Michelle's examples and what type of advice I gave to Rinkesh and what type of advice I'm going to give you, Dipta. That's free, immediate thing. You can also watch my free videos on reviews of resumes on my channel. There's quite a few. That should be enough. I mean, honestly, there is no more than that. The course I'm trying to kind of give it to you, what I launched was basically to guide you and give the tools. Like, I'm literally creating a checklist of work experiences of what that could be in terms of business contribution, UX impact, people's impact, stuff like that. So you have some demo bits. It's not in your right to copy those because you need to do that job, but it's an example of what it could be like. So if you're interested, check that out. A code for 30% off is magnetic. It's limited, you know, it's up to you. But it's obviously there's free resources, which I'm giving through this live stream too. So I don't want to just make this a sales pitch because it's not. Okay, so let's dive into it because I know a lot of people are like, come on, get to it, get to business. So Udipta, UX researcher, January 2022, March 2023, so over a year. Cool. Conducted research to understand more about current scenario of UX organizations and difficulties. Faced UX leaders, outcome-inspired content for the book. Collaborated, developed and research plan and goals. Created 2 sets of surveys. So Udipta, I think this is, I guess, your work for the book itself, right? Or is it, how does it inspire it? How does it connect to that? Is it part of that project of the creation of a book, which is by a good book, a brilliant book? Every UXer should read it. But I want to know a bit of background because it's one release in multiple categories. I would even make this, I would even kind of take this specific quote and put it in other notable work category somewhere here, where you basically contributed to the book. You could even add ISBN, the number, basically make it more specific so we know what the book is about. You could mention the author, which is Debbie Levitt. You could basically say that this is a project you contributed, even if you list it as an experience, if that makes sense. But I think it's worth calling it out as another thing, because you are basically, you're, I guess, part of a team, if I understand that correctly. Do let me know if I'm getting this wrong, by the way. I guess you ran some sort of research, understand more about current scenarios. Okay. Collaborate in developing detailed research plans, created 2 sets of surveys. So you were leading with numbers, which is great. Synthesize 26 hours of qualitative data using thematic analysis and further. I don't think 26 hours matters as much. I don't know how you feel about it if you're too attached. I think thematic analysis, further affinity mapping, stuff like that is good. Concisely presented findings and provided actionable recommendations. This is where I would maybe question if it's specific enough, or is it expected in a way. Like, to me, what matters more, like, actionable recommendations is big for user research, but how or to what extent, what the outcome of that actual recommendations is bigger. So maybe you could think about how to make this a bit more specific and value driven, if that makes sense. And you're saying the book took bits from that project's insights essentially, but the goal of the project was not to create a book, if that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. That's fair. You could, I don't know if, like, again, it's maybe you need to reflect if it's fair to say that you contributed to it or not, but if not, then not is fine. I just thought that that would be a, kind of like worthy call out. And Michelle is saying, I'd want to know what the action was and why, maybe. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like, what was part of that actionable recommendations. And also in the interview, if you apply for a UX research role, they would ask you, like, how did you, like, was it a report? Like, how did you provide the recommendations? How did you handle stakeholders? What was that like? So yeah, you could kind of think about this a bit more. Again, the highlights, things of that nature, of the outcomes and achievements. And what also, like, think about, like, what's beyond of what's expected of a user researcher. Have you done some of that too? Because if it inspired a book, there must be something hefty in it. Explore it, if anything. Keeping it open-ended. January and July, so this is quite short. UX design intern, okay, that's fair. Worked as a UX designer on 3 projects: design system, retail creation, distributor, app revamp. So I think worked is a bit, I don't want to say weak, but it's not strong, if that makes sense. So your contribution to design system, retail creation, distributor, app, like, what was it like? Contributed, led, things of that nature, basically making it a bit more assertive than that. And also, this could be a bullet point itself. Improved design consistency by 80% by implementing a design system. Yeah, that's a big one. The consistency too. You might just be asked in the interview, like, how, to what extent. Significantly improved the retailer mobile and onboarding experience by removing 27 redundancies. I don't know what that means. The redundancies, maybe it doesn't make sense to me. Maybe you could specify what that means. And simplifying task flow and user flows. Could you extract how? To what extent? Do you have any metrics or outcomes from UX perspective? That could be it, because simplification is one thing, but does that mean that it's more like the efficiency gains were achieved or goals were achieved better? To what extent? Is there any usability metrics or anything like that, like going a bit deeper? Maybe you didn't do that, but reflect for the next time then. Responsively redesigned 150 screens across mobile and web platforms for distribution. So amount of screens wouldn't matter as much, to be honest. Responsively redesigned, so I guess you made something into responsive. I would focus on the delta itself, on responsiveness. So maybe, I don't know what, like, again, I don't want to phrase it, so don't take it as a, you know, as a template and you copy paste it in. Like, you obviously need to paraphrase it, wordsmith it a bit more, but like that delta, that result exactly is what you should be focusing on. And this is like saying the output was 150 screens which were responsive. But why? Like, why was that so important to achieve? What does that contribute to? It was that contributing to mobile adoption, mobile conversions? Like, did you know that, I don't know, and this is background information, but my question would be, did you know that most users are on mobile and you need to bring it up? You know, that type of thinking, and this is your result. That's what you should add to it, if that makes sense. Unfortunately, don't have any post-project metrics from a usability and UX standpoint. So this is a big lesson for you then. The next project you start, you need to start with the metrics. I need to make a video. It's on my never-ending Kanban board of like UX videos to make, of like how I would start a project, or what good start to the project looks like, a kickoff, and where, like, what sort of metrics you could actually add to it. But you need to, you know, obviously don't fake it, but think if there was anything else, even if it's verbose. Maybe you don't have exact numbers, but why did you do this? If you know that it's to improve the conversions, at least mention that, because that's result bound and leading with a result. Reduced revision time by 6 hours, establishing a shared understanding of a project amongst stakeholders and engineers through creation of detailed screen flows, annotating designs for hands-off. Okay, so reduce revision time by 6 hours. Does that mean the handoffs or iterations or things of that nature? You could literally paraphrase this, and this is how I read, by the way. I might be totally wrong, but you could say that like design to development iterations improved by, or improved design to development, or design to shipped product iterations time or efficiency by something. Like, I hope that makes sense, because again, I'm literally shooting from the hip. I haven't thought about this, because you know what you did and what was the result, but I hope that kind of like calls it out and sparks more ideas of how you could frame this. Product design intern. So you did 2 internships. Product design intern, worked as a sole designer in designing a responsive drone mapping and photogrammetric software tool and dashboard to help streamline the data processing drone mapping. So this is type of stuff which kind of like excites me a lot. I would want to see the portfolio just for that. And that obviously is me. Not everybody's going to be that keen. If they work for e-commerce as a hiring manager or something like that, they could just be like, yeah, too technical. Or maybe it's more for enterprise tools oriented or appreciative people. But that would immediately, I would want to look into it. You could probably wordsmith it a bit to simplify it as well. But when you're saying created a design system with components, to establish across designs, initiated collaboration between stakeholders, analysts, yada, yada, and to build alignment of project requirements and gauge the technical feasibilities, conducted competitive audits, created information architecture. Do you have any literally outcomes for any of these basically? Because, I mean, it's good that you summarize what you did, but again, like, do you have an example outcome? So for example, sometimes you might be doing several different studies or contributing as an intern or as a junior, but everything results in something. And if you haven't done that, you have to start doing or thinking about those things when you do these things, because that's how you improve your resume. You could literally call it out that, you know, you led or contributed to competitive audits. For example, one of them led to this massive result. That's how you kind of can frame it on your resume. I I think for internship it's fine, those things, but again, you shouldn't limit it with the things me saying it's fine. Next project, go after it and go above and beyond and basically double down on these metrics, results, outcomes, highlights of the experience. They're going above and beyond the achievements, be it personal, professional, UX, business, you name it. I think you can go a bit deeper, especially if like created a design system with 200 components is a metric, but why does that matter? Like you could say that you established the design system. That would be enough. Establishing visual consistency across designs, why does that matter? Is it that the tone of voice has to be defined, the visual language had to be defined because it was inconsistent? That type of, like basically add the reason, because the reason matters here as much as anything else. But anyways, I'm out of steam because there is a lot here and I know it's additive too. So if you're just joining this thing, I'm not going to cover Udipta, your ATS system optimized thing. You just, you see that it's all basically ATS is not columns, not colors. It's just simple list of bullet points and stuff like that. And I think you're adding more information into your ATS system, which is like, you could kind of like, do justice and align those. Anyways, that small bit of feedback and me being nitpicky. Okay. Now, I'm going to end with a shameless plug. I know there is a lot of content in the chat. I don't know if I'm going to address it. I need to also plan what's next. I know it's been a lengthy session, it's additive, but let me just leave you with a video intro to the session. I'm going to take a sip before I say goodbye, but I hope you enjoyed this video and I'm going to be back in a minute just to say bye. But yeah, take a look at the live stream if you missed some of these things. But and of course, if part of that course is something you are interested in, opt in. If it's not for you, totally fine. Again, it's totally fair. There's a lot of free resources on my channel, and that should be a start. Anyways, but without further ado, this is Create a Magnetic Resume course for you. Hey, I'm V from VAEXPERIENCE, and I have something super exciting to share with you today. It's a brand new video course called Create a Magnetic UX Resume. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't matter what the market conditions are, you're always going to face very stark competition. There's going to be hundreds of people applying for the same position. So your best bet is really to invest in making your resume as magnetic as it can be, because it has to start conversations and clearly show the evidence that you can do the job. And this is exactly why I created this course, to charge your resume up and level it up to that magnetic state. But let me stop talking here and show you exactly what the course contains, because it has 5 exciting modules. And these are filled with multiple hours of video lessons, tools, checklists, and everything you might need on a journey to make your resume better. For example, in module 1, you're gonna get the intro to a course. Again, I told you exactly why it matters, why this is for you. I'm also gonna give you a few tips of how to make the best of this course. In a module 2, we're gonna talk about what resumes are, how do resumes work, who's involved in the process, what do they think about from hiring and recruiter management perspective. We're gonna talk about the invisible touch points of the actual resume and why it's so important to get the resumes right. Think of it as a discovery, as a foundational understanding, which likely is going to reset some of the notions you had before. And in this specific course, I want you to basically avoid those mistakes before it's too late, because sometimes you might be applying for 100 jobs and then only at the end realize, oh crap, this specific formatting or these specific themes just didn't work in your benefit. So you kind of have to then go back and be like, crap, how many opportunities did I kill, not understanding exactly what matters and why. This is exactly what we're going to try to rebuild. Next one, we're going to talk about what makes certain resumes successful, but we're going to obviously start with what fails. Then we're going to follow up with what matters and what works. So it doesn't matter what position you take or how many years from now it is from you watching this, course or video, you opting in and learning from this. I want you to be able to reflect and kind of review your resume always objectively and understand exactly what could fail or trip it, or work as a bedrock basically, where you can build up more and more experience as you go and only extract the bits which matter to the, let's say, the job applications or you creating it And the next module after that, which is module 4, is really the making of the resume, where I'm going to ask you to actually create me a resume with no limits. Obviously, you're already going to have the principles, the tools. Again, I'm going to share you Notion files and templates and things of that nature, which is going to highlight exactly what you need to put in a resume. Later on, we can tailor and create multiple resumes. And bada bing, bada boom, the last module obviously is going to be about usage of the resume. So this is where we're going to introduce the art of tailoring. If you've been following me for a while, you know on my YouTube videos, I'm adamant that you must tailor your resumes. Doesn't have to be said, but I'm going to show you how to tailor the resume. There's going to be also bonus resources. So you can expect templates, you can expect checklists. I'm going to give you the support you need to convert your resume or create your resume. And of course, there's a ton more in this course. I cannot give it all in just a few minutes. So make sure to explore, make sure to opt in if this is for you, and I'll see you there. Cool. So that's about it. Thank you so much for everyone tuning in. Just want to leave with one simple idea. I know some of you are still on the actual live stream, which I really appreciate. But resume is only one tool. So, you know, like it's easy to kind of think that this is it. Like the resume has to be solid and like, you know, but you might be over designing or over engineering one thing over the other. So resume is like a first signal, the first specific touch point someone would take and have conversations about and maybe say, okay, this person has what it takes, or at least it seems that they have what it takes. They would check the portfolio, they would talk to hiring team or hiring manager, and then maybe invite you for a screen call or just have a screen call. But it's one touch point. What matters as well, and I cannot overstress this enough, because people think that if they get their resume in order, but you know their portfolio is not sufficient, they're gonna succeed. No, that's not the case, because it's a combination of all the peripheral signals, the experience, what you say, how you market it obviously matters, but also portfolio is such a big factor. But that's what's in your control. What is not in your control, what I want to say is that you have to know exactly what role you're applying for, where, what sector, what industry. It's like, you know, picking, like crafting your fishing skills, and you have this rod and you have this bait, and you focus on the bait and crafting the bait so you can get that fish, but you might not go in the right pond, or you might not, you know, you might need other mastering skills of the actual line and things of that nature. Obviously out of my wheelhouse again, if an example, but you get my point. Like most of us try to kind of go in like an almost like opt in for different ponds or rivers or lakes every single day. But in reality, you could be, you know, freshwater fisherman instead of something else like a sea fisherman, stuff like that, basically, where you need to understand exactly what's realistic, where it fits, where it doesn't fit. The worst thing to do is really kind of like invest in the resume and make one resume and think that it's going to perform in every single situation, because it doesn't. Same for a portfolio too. That's why portfolio should show the range of the work you want to do and are capable to do. And resume is a reflection of how well what you have meets the expectations of the job spec. I know it's a lot of obvious statements and themes, but just think about that, because then it should invite you to tailor your resume. Because if you know that you know where you're fishing, you know what sort of fish you want to catch, then you just need to portray those signals. You need to reflect and think exactly what matters in those situations, that context, that pond, and that fish ultimately. And then show them up, bring them up, tailor it. Don't think that you just craft your resume and one thing is going to fit for everything. Just like with sorry, I'm blanking on a name now immediately. But the mid resume with a B2B SaaS example is prime example. You should state those things, and then it's going to be much easier for you to find another job for B2B SaaS because you have that experience. So you should bring it forward. And if you see a job spec which needs B2B SaaS, or the company does B2B SaaS, much likely to match, granted that your portfolio and case studies and everything else matches up. But anyways, I'm going to leave it here because that's the thinking. That's a lot of those themes in the course, and also how I giving you all these examples and advice bits. I hope you have a good weekend. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this. And on that note, and as per usual, I'm out. Thank you so much.